Hello, it's Jared again from Yellowwood Guiding. In this video series, we're going to talk about Adobe Camera Raw. It's a really awesome program that allows you to open up raw files. In Nikon, it shoots in NEF, or in Canon, you're shooting with a RAW. And raw images allow you to edit them in some pretty dramatic ways, but without damaging the information. So we're going to do where I'm in Adobe Bridge right now. I'm going to right-click and open in Camera Raw with this Fox image. Once it opens up here, I'm going to resize to fit back in my window. We want to talk about the first elements here in the picture. We want to look at the temperature, we want to look at exposure. The histogram is a very important aspect. What can we do in this first panel here, the basic panel? So there's a lot of neat things that we can do inside of it. The first thing, we can adjust the exposure. So looking at my exposure is just a little bit not as bright as I'd like it. We can brighten that up, make sure we don't clip off any of the highlights. We can do some other things. From exposure, we can come down here to the blacks. We want to make that image look a little darker, bring out some shadows. Now watch as you move around any one of these sliders, you can see how that affects your histogram. We don't want to clip off any of the blacks. We definitely want to add some contrast to this image, so we're going to bump up the contrast. We're going to make that up here. We want to contrast the taste, just like we talked about in the standard editing process. Whenever you adjust your contrast, you spread out your histogram. When you reduce the contrast, you narrow it down. So we're spreading it out, making it more robust across the spectrum. There's some really cool features here. We've got shadows, and instead of dealing with the shadows and highlights in Photoshop, we can use fill light. And this is a much more gradual way and less noisy way to adjust your photos. So we're going to add some fill light in here. You can see it takes away some of those shadows underneath the legs. There's a slider down here called clarity, which I like. What it does is it bumps up the contrast in the midtones and adds some sharpness. And you can way overdo it, just like anything in Photoshop or editing, but we're going to bump that up, make that fox stand out a little bit more. The next aspect, we can make our image, is the biggest thing we can do is we can white balance it. We talked about that before, but we're going to use the color dropper. We're going to zoom around here and look to find a nice area that balances out color wise. So somewhere right in here, that looks like a pretty good one. We're going to select a few others, see if there's a better spot. There's one that's pretty good. We're looking to see if our image is already color balanced, if there's a tone to it at all. And looking around, we can then go up here and select this white balance tool, the eyedropper, and select either 1, 2, or 3. And you can see what it does. It adjusts some things around. What it really does over here is it adjusts your color temperature, and blue is a light color. As you go more and more yellow, you're going to head that direction. So I liked 3. The way 3 felt over here felt what was reality. So I clicked on 3. That's a nice middle tone now. Everything's about even. When you're color balancing, you're trying to take away any dependence on one color or the other to balance them all out. So we're going to clear that. Last step I always do on this panel is I'm going to add some vibrance. I'm going to add some saturation. The vibrance, you can really oversaturate. You can see that spreads out your colors again. Saturation is going to do the exact same thing, but a little bit more harsh, so we can really fine-tune what our colors will look like. And that's the first panel of Adobe Camera Raw. Really cool tool.